With Victor Wembanyama's play this season, should he be considered in the MVP race?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs. We're in the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. And thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts. You know where to go. Ken's 5 Plus app, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Go subscribe right now. Subscribe to the Locked On Spurs newsletter. YouTube side of things, it's in the description below. Click on that. Completely free. Sign up right now. What are we talking about today? We're going to be asking the big question. With Wembanyama's play this season, has he earned himself, I don't say the right, but should he be in the MVP or NBA MVP conversation? Let's put into monster numbers. Is it enough to get him at least some fight? And when it comes down to the end and who is taking home the hardware. And then we're going to look at you guys, the Locked On Spurs fan comments. What are y'all talking about over the Locked On Spurs YouTube page? We're going to be discussing that and so much more. Hey, but before we continue, though, again, make sure to go check out FanDuel. Yeah, that's right. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Win or lose, visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, Wemby did the intro. He's putting up monster numbers, and they're just insane. And yes, the Spurs are winning, but the bar was set low considering last season's win total. Nevertheless, though, the Spurs technically are better this season. He is putting up big-time numbers, not just offensively, but defensively. Is that enough to get him in the MVP conversation? Let's go ahead and talk that with our good friend. He is with Spurs on Sports Illustrated, Matt Guzman. Matt, welcome back to Locked On Spurs.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. See, this is why we bring Matt on, because he can multitask. He can podcast and drive at the same time. You're pretty awesome, Matt.
I appreciate it. You're awesome as well.
In case you're wondering why no video today, Matt unfortunately could not make it, at least for a video show. He is a very busy guy, so we are doing an audio-only show today, but we'll be back to video tomorrow. So, Matt, again, first of all, make sure that everybody to follow you on X at MattGZMAN. He has great articles and future articles coming out. I'm aware of a couple of them. I think you fans will enjoy them once Matt puts them out. So, Matt, let's dive into it here, and I know you're busy. But Wemby, you and I sit together during games on Media Row. I mean, we're just like, whoa, this guy's doing it all. And you got to wonder, technically the Spurs are better last year. I mean, it's a lot more games to play, but they're trending in the right direction to pick up more W's than L's. He's putting the right monster numbers. Do you think what he's done so far has put him in a position to contend/compete for the NBA MVP?
It's so interesting because, I think we had a debate about whether or not he deserves a Defensive Player of the Year award already. I think, this year he's definitely going to be the front runner for that one. But when you put him with awards and accolades, they never tend to follow the typical, he's breaking records, right? Fastest player to get X amount of 3-pointers or X amount of dunks, fastest player to this and that. But, I mean, it goes kind of beyond the physical stats. He's kind of changing the way that everyone is looking at awards, period. Because people were saying, why shouldn't he have been defensive MVP last year? Because, maybe he didn't have quite as high a defensive rating as Gobert, but there were guards that were scared to go to the rim, which we still see on a daily basis. But at the same time, you have to weigh, what do the numbers say? And as far as MVP goes, I mean, the Spurs are not, in the top 4 of the Western Conference. So he's not the best player on one of the best teams in the West, which in the past, or East, I guess, in the past, that's kind of been, the one criteria that he needs to meet is the Spurs need to be this good, X good. I don't know how good that is, but they need to reach that level. And obviously last year they're not. This year they're a lot better than they were. It's funny that you mentioned that the technically being better. It's weird. They're 5 wins away, I should say, from matching their win total the entirety of last season. They could hit that and surpass it by the time the All-Star break even reaches. And so, to me, by the numbers, by the history, he shouldn't be in the MVP conversation just because the Spurs aren't as good as the Nuggets or the Thunder or, name your team at the top of the West. But at the same time, the things that he's doing, the way that he affects the game, he's clearly the best player on the team, but he's also one of the best players in the league just by, how well-rounded his game is. And I think that's something that should give him some credit, and I think it has.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be, I think he'll be in the mix. You'll probably hear his name when the season starts wrapping up and the regular season awards start getting, formulated who's going to win this and that. But it's all about his performance and impact. So first of all, he's putting up, I guess it's too early to say his career numbers is only just a season and a half-ish into his pro. He is
Most Improved Player Award.
Yeah, I know. But, in just 30 games this season, 33 minutes per game, 26 points per game, close to 11 rebounds per game, 3.8 assists, about a steal per game. Definitely up across the board from his rookie season. And then you look at, how he's able to facilitate. We mentioned the assist nearly 4 a game. The blocks, defensively, creating second chance opportunity, just stifling defense. The steals I just mentioned. He impacts the game on both ends of the court. For the Spurs, his three-point shooting has got a lot better, 36% from the three line as of this recording. Offensively, he's responsible for the team. Defensively, he's more than responsible for the team, and he's doing it. Matt, I contend that if you're going to go by the definition, you can't get more valuable player for any team than Wemby. You take Wemby off that team, this team is nowhere close to, reaching their 22 win mark so early. They're not beating Denver in Denver. They're not taking them to overtime. By definition, isn't that MVP stats? Isn't that MVP acknowledgement?
Absolutely. I think you're completely justified in saying that and arguing that. The only reason that I don't think, because like you said, I don't think anyone would argue that, because you can even look at a team like the Thunder, right? Without Shea, they're definitely not going to be nearly as good, but they have a lot of other pieces that have been really, really doing well. Whereas the Spurs, Stephon Castle has stepped up. Chris Paul's been dishing out assists, and, Harrison Barnes has his games where he's hot and he can get his 3-point shots to fall. But none of those players, on their own are players where you're looking at, maybe all-star, maybe season awards beyond Stephon Castle as a rookie. Whereas, other teams like the Thunder or the Nuggets, you have Jamal Murray on the Nuggets. You've got Jalen Williams on the Thunder. Got a couple of them, actually. But I just think, to your point, there's one clear best player on the Spurs, because Devin Vassell hasn't even hit that level yet.
Yeah.
And by definition, that does make him MVP. So it makes me wonder if they're considering the fact that, maybe they want to see more. They want to see more success, because the same Spurs squad minus Stephon Castle, it was essentially the same one last year. You added a couple of veterans in Stephon Castle, but that team with Wemby as the best player only got 22 wins. So I wonder if they're thinking about that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't even know why we have to bring this up, but just to drive home the point, we know his impact when he's off the court and on the court. I don't think we go to the eye test will tell you, it's a big difference. Again, more argument to why he should seriously be considered for NBA MVP. So you look at what he's doing this season, the combination of points and rebounds and blocks, assists, 3-pointers, West Defensive Player of the Month, and, pick for Western Conference Player of the Week and month. Again, to me, that just screams, MVP material. But the thing about it, Matt, is, you brought it up right now, is how much more does he need to prove? He's a walking double-double. He's a walking triple-double at this point, if he wants to. And I think that is more criteria to why he should be considered in the MVP race. He is Matt Guzman with Spurs of Sports Illustrated. Follow him on X at Matt G. Yeah, he's doing it all. Make sure to follow him on X at Matt GZMAN. Hey, when we get back, we continue our chat about Wemby and the MVP. Should he be considered? Right here on Locked On Spurs, again with Matt Guzman. But first, let's talk about FanDuel.
Hey, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get 150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need and the place where to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of a game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bet. Just visit fanduel.com right now to join today. By the way, the app is very easy to use, user-friendly. It's very intuitive and not hard to navigate whatsoever. Sign up is easy. Hey, look, NFL action, as mentioned, is underway. NBA action is underway. Your Spurs are underway right now. What more do you need? Go to fanduel.com right now to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. Again, $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All that takes is just for you to go and sign up right now. That's fanduel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Hey, this is Hot Rod.
And I'm RC from the Cybertron Springs.
And you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Matt Guzman of Spurs and Sports Illustrated. Follow my next ad, Matt GZMAN. We're talking about Wembanyama and the MVP race. Now, Matt, it is way too early still in the NBA season to be discussing that award. But you brought up something very interesting in the first segment. Is maybe the Boulders got to see more out of him. What would you think him individually would have to do to really push further that he should be considered an NBA MVP candidate? I mean, what more can I do?
Right. And I think, it goes back to one of the earlier points of the season when a lot of the discourse was about how effective he can be as a shooter. I think there's a lot of people that hate the fact that he shoots 3-pointers at such volume. But there's games, and especially as of late, he's proven why. He's capable of making 5 or 6 threes a game and then shooting 12, 13, 14. Sometimes they don't fall, but I think it's becoming a staple of his game that he's a shooter and he wants to be labeled as such. Because as tall as he is and as well as he knows how to use his own length and frame, there's never going to be a question that he can score inside. And so I think for him, developing that outside play and something else beyond just being tall, beyond just being a good shot blocker, is going to be key for him to continue to make his case for one of the best players in the league and in the world. And I think he's well on his way as long as he continues to shoot well, because we've seen whenever he shoots well and kind of impacts the game on all levels, those are the games that the Spurs play the best.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room, and this is why he'll likely not get it, even though it is an individual award. It is, but it's about team success ultimately, and right, that's what it comes down to. Now, his performance is just eye-opening. It's jaw-dropping. I mean, I was talking about this in the last Locked On Spurs, Matt, with our guests. I said, somebody's asked me, like, what is it like covering Wemby? And with all those numbers and, stats that he puts up almost nightly, I said, it's becoming routine now. It's more like, oh, okay. Oh, he got a quad double. Okay, sure. Great. That's just Wemby for you, But again, I think when he starts winning and having team success, you combine that with the stats, then we're talking. And unfortunately, it does say that team success is crucial, even though it is an individual award. So, what if the Spurs get into the play-in? We think that'll be enough for him to get serious consideration?
I think, well, yes. To get serious consideration, absolutely. I think the thing that's missing there would be, you have another player who's honestly been pushing for the award for the past 2 to 3 seasons and hasn't really gotten that recognition, and that's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If you want to cite voter fatigue, I think they're done giving Jokic the MVP after 3 seasons. And I think Shai is a new, relatively new face to this conversation. And by definition, that team success is going to matter. The Thunder will be finishing higher than the Spurs. And so to me, I feel like it's almost like the Spurs would have to secure a top 6 seed with Wemby being, the front runner that he's been, for him to really make a run and potentially split the vote.
Yeah. Yeah, you have the familiar faces around there, Nicola and SGA, maybe Giannis. But
Yeah,
you look at those, you see, but that's the way they were that where Wemby can maybe sneak in is that in the West, at least, it's kind of jumbled up.
Right.
It's, not like the Thunder are having a great season record wise. I don't even think the clear favor right now is like the SGA because the Thunder are just on another level right now, heads above the rest of the NBA. So I can see him walking away with the award. But man, it just goes down to roster construction and getting wins. I think it really is. It's going to come down to that. Can he sustain this level of play throughout the season? More than likely. But can he sustain it for a longevity of his career as well? Because it's going to take some time for him and the team and those to assemble a roster good enough to be a perennial all playoff team, a 1 through 6, not a sneak in through the play-in. I think when we get to there, then you'll likely see him being a more than compelling candidate for the award. Matt, I'm not going to be surprised though if he picks up some votes though. I mean, I think I'd be more shocked.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, he's probably going to secure that Defensive Player of the Year before the year is even done. I think he has a very, very strong case to make that All NBA squad. He was close to it last year. He got some votes, and so I think this year it's going to be a no-brainer for him to make one of the three. He's gonna collect his All-Star start this season, and I think as far as MVP goes, he's definitely got some people who are going to vote for him. The thing I kind of wanted to bring up real quick, I was curious your thoughts. Do you think it's going to matter at all, how he performs against the other candidates? I mean, he just had a pair of games against Jokic and honestly did really well. He put up 20-20 against him in the second game. I know that they've played the Thunder and the Nuggets, and they're about to play the Lakers. Do you think it's going to matter how well he fares against some other, potentially MVP winning players?
I think he does because the record at the end likely won't reflect, the MVP level impact on the team that the voters go for. But if he can just kind of cherry pick these individual wins against top level players like Nicola or SGA or Giannis, as you insert big time name NBA player in front of it. I think anything he can do individually will help him in his efforts, or at least, try to, make things interesting for the MVP race. Because at the rate this team is going, Matt, they're likely to finish around 500. And in the West, that ain't going to be enough to get you in the play-in. So they'll miss the play-in again. They'll miss the playoffs. They'll have monster numbers, but the voters are going to see all that. They're going to be, well, Wemby, yeah, you want player of the week, month, and all-star, and this and that. But your team missed the play-in. Your team missed the playoffs. So I think that's going to just be a negative punch for him. Which begs the question, Matt, do you think the team needs to get going and making the roster that is fitting for Wemby and his numbers to get him in that race?
I think that might come second to, whatever long-term goals they have for the team in general. To me, there's no doubt in my mind that Victor will become, or I guess that he'll win the MVP 2, 3, or 4 times in his career. Like that almost to me seems like a shoo-in by the time he's done and really playing at his full potential. And so it makes me wonder, if the Spurs were to make some moves and all of a sudden they are, in that position to get a play-in tournament or God willing, a number 6 seed, right, to avoid that play-in tournament. It makes me wonder, what that could look like. Because there's a scenario too, like you said, that they missed the playoffs and all the voters are like, well, you didn't do enough. But, if the Spurs can manage to put together, whether that's by trade or not, put together a team that's really competing for that play-in spot, and, there's a big-time game towards the end of it that would help them clinch that position. And Victor has this massive game-winning block or game-winning three-pointer.
Yeah.
I think that, his case would boost phenomenally. And honestly, that's something that I think could happen. It's a matter of how they kind of progress over these next couple of weeks and if they grab some positive momentum coming into the All-Star break.
Absolutely. He is Matt Guzman with Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Follow him on X at MattGZMAN. Do that right now. He has a lot of articles coming up in the pipeline for himself. I know what they are. Maybe he'll share that with us in a few minutes. We'll see what Matt has to say about that and more. Hey, but we're done talking about Wemby and the MVP race. Should he be considered? Is he going to get some serious votes? We need to know what you have to say about that. You can let us know over at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page right now. Hey, speaking of the Locked On Spurs YouTube page, we're going to do that next. Dive into some of the comments you guys are leaving there and some interesting ones just all over, man. It's a good mixed bag of comments from the Locked On Spurs fans. Let's talk about those in just a few seconds. But first, I want to talk to you about Prize Picks.
Basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get real money action while watching your favorite NBA stars with Prize Picks. Whether you're a diehard fan or just love some friendly competition, Prize Picks makes it fun and easy to turn your basketball knowledge into cash. Here's how it works. Pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Think Wembanyama's going to drop 30 points? Maybe Devin's going to get more than 8 assists? Prize Picks lets you make your predictions and put your money where your mouth is in just 60 seconds. Look, I've been using Prize Picks all season long. It's very addictive. I mean, last week, well, just pretty much every day, Wemby's going for more than 20 plus points. You got Devin Vassell playing well right now. That's the kind of action I'm talking about. And with Prize Picks Flex Play option, even if one of my picks doesn't hit, I can still double my money. Plus, once I hit, I get my money fast. Sometimes as quick as 15 minutes. It's honestly the best way to keep the game exciting. Now's the perfect time to join. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. No need to win to get in on the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game.
As the new leader of the Decepticons, I command you to subscribe to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Matt Guzman, Spurs on Sports Illustrated. Check him out on X at MattGZMAN. And now it's time to dive into the Locked On Spurs YouTube comments. You fans, man, you got some high expectations for this silver and black team. They get a little wins, Matt, and the fans are like, we need more. They're like Gollum, with the ring. You're like, my precious wins. So Spurs fans, keep it up. Keep those comments coming. All right, let's dive into them right now. So this is from Righteous Rhythm. He says, the Spurs need a backup big man. And fighting myself shade at Zach Collins there. But what do you think about that, Matt? Do the Spurs need a backup big man for Wemby on the roster? You got Collins, you got Bassey right now. I guess maybe Sohan. He plays at 5 once in a while. But do you think that's a need this team needs?
Absolutely. 100,000%. And we, I think we discussed it on the therapy couch a couple of weeks ago. I was hoping that would be Zach Collins because, he's the traditional big man that can play in the post and grab rebounds. He's not going to be the one that's, he's not a stretch big. He wants to be with his 3-point shot, but he's not. But even so, he has the framework and the potential to be that solid backup to especially to a point or a center that is as fluid as Victor, who doesn't quite play at that 5 role to the T. But I don't think that it's really working out with him. He basically fell out of the rotation after his injury, and he's gotten a few more minutes in a couple games here and there. But I don't think it's clicking right now. I love Charles Bassey's work ethic, and I love the way that he plays as kind of a tertiary center. But I do think that they're looking for another big man to pair with Victor Wembanyama. That's why they were looking at Lauri Markkanen over the offseason. I've seen the name Jonas Valanciunas thrown around there. There's players out there who could really complement Victor and bring some size, but a different skill set since Victor's is so unique. And I think that would be a big time need and a big time get for that roster too, if they could find somebody that fits that role.
Yeah, Collins, you mentioned the roster issue. The rotation issue, really doesn't stretch the floor. Has just a good game every once in a while, but far and few between. He might be on the outs, whether it's end of this season, trade deadline, what have you.
Right.
He's still in the books, though, man. He has a big contract with the Spurs, so that reminds me of the old Pau Gasol contract back in the day. But Bassey, I think he's adequate, but not enough. Look, he fills in for Wemby whenever Wemby's out. I mean, the defensive presence, he blocks shots, not as good as Wemby, but close to it.
Yeah.
But I think they still need a quality stretch. You know, you got Jonas Valanciunas, you mentioned. That would be adequate. Jakob Poeltl, you know, again,
That'd be crazy.
That'd be crazy, yeah, to bring him back. But yeah, I do agree with you. Righteous Rhythm, as does Matt. You know, yeah, the Spurs do need a backup big man. Who knows? Maybe that might be in the draft. You know, the Spurs got a lot of picks, so we'll see.
Absolutely. You know, and there's the next thing you mentioned the draft real quick. You know, that was actually one of the players, Donovan Clingan. I was hoping might use one of their picks on him.
Yeah,
but they didn't end up doing that.
I'm right there with you. I really thought they were going to go with him. I had him on my draft board high for the Spurs to get him, and he was still on the draft board. I was like, please, Spurs, please. Him and Dalton connect too. I really wanted the Spurs to get those guys. Yeah, I was a little raw. Steph Castle was great. It's great and playing great. His trajectory is great, but I wouldn't.
And then they had another pick, right? They could have had both.
They could have had both. Yeah. All right. Next comment comes from Safe Space Invader. Cool name there, Safe Space. He comments, we would have to gut our team for Butler. Now, he's referring to the old Jimmy Butler situation right now in Miami. There was some little sprinkling that the Spurs might be interested, but it's not, you know, and there's no heat. It's just a little bit of puff smoke here. He goes, but I don't see that. Butler has 4 bad exits from the teams. Spurs won't gamble on that. Yeah, I'm with you, Safe Space. I think, given Butler's age, that he wants a bag, the culture fit in San Antonio, I don't think it'll work out with Jimmy Butler in San Antonio. No, he's a dog, and I think the Spurs can definitely use more dog in him. But I just think at his point of the career, I mean, you burn bridges with 4 other teams. You're likely, you know, your history doesn't show that you fit well with teams. So I'm agreeing with you, say Space Invader. I don't see Spurs giving Butler a silver and black jersey anytime soon. What about you, Matt?
You should have, you know, I kind of wish that this was a video podcast. You should have seen my face when you mentioned Butler, because I thought the comment was going the opposite direction, saying that they should go for him. And no, I think I'm absolutely with Safe Space and you. I don't think it wouldn't be worth the risk or worth the price that it would take to grab him from Miami. You know, like you mentioned, he's a good player. You know, he shows up in the playoffs both time, which is a quality and aspect that they would need. And then who knows, you know, maybe he and Chris Paul would unlock a new dynamic, both being, you know, veterans, but, you know, just that culture and the kind of team that the Spurs are building. I don't think that they have room for divas, or for players who kind of have that big ego. And sometimes it's not a bad thing, you know, but I just don't know if he fits that dynamic that the Spurs are looking to build, especially as a young team. And if they want to be branded as a young team with lots of room to grow, you know, it's not exactly the best move to send half your young pieces away for an older player who may or may not leave mad or leave you burned, you know? So I don't think it'd be a great idea for them to go for it.
Yeah, me neither. You know, I could see maybe the Spurs getting involved in some sort of like 3-way deal just to make things work. And
that's how they got Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, I could see something like that happening, but not to literally get Jimmy Butler in a Spurs uniform. All right, but no, the whole apron stuff and all that. I mean, that's something my eyes just spin when talking about the aprons and whatnot. But I could see something like that happening. Maybe the Spurs get involved in that capacity, but nothing serious as to bring in Jimmy Butler. And think you bring in a guy like that now, where they're playing pretty good. I think they're 3-2 in their last 5 games as of this recording. You know, interesting too, Matt. I was doing some numbers when I was writing up an article I had about Harrison Barnes. We were there when I chatted with Harrison Barnes.
Yeah.
Get this. I'm gonna bring this to your attention here. You know, so the Spurs are 3-2 in their last 5 games as of this recording, right? Well, in the last 5 games, the Spurs have a 105.1 defensive rating, good for 3rd in the NBA, a 51% rebound percentage, which is 9th in the NBA. So they're getting it done defensively, and I'm like thinking like, oh, Butler would definitely increase that, but no, I just think it's just too much to risk. You don't want to disrupt any flow they have right now, because that's a major piece. It's not like you're bringing a guy that's a role player. This is the guy that's an established all-star. He's going to want his touches. He's going to want to earn another bag. And I'm looking to see the Spurs wanting to dip into their cash and their draft picks to give it to Miami for somebody who may or may not be here, a long-term stay in San Antonio. But hey, we thank y'all for making Locked On Spurs your first listen. Keep coming with those comments over the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. We need help. We need that help from you guys as the season moves on. Hey, Matt, what is going on in your neck of the woods with the Spurs on Sports Illustrated?
Yeah, no, I guess you alluded to it a couple of times. I'm working on that. A big feature on Julian Champagny. Still, I'm actually finishing it up this week to get it out there. Gonna get to include, I guess, some of the stories from his trip to New York, to being home in a sense. Not exactly a Staten Island guy, but he's close.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be working on that one, and then got a couple of trips down to Austin too. Well, I guess I live there, so not really trips, but a couple of visits to Cedar Park Center to go check out the G League and see who's doing well over there. So that's kind of what's going on.
Awesome. And to keep up on things that Matt has cooking for you guys, make sure to follow him on X at MattGZMAN and do that right now. By the way, I got a little peek at a photo, and let's just put it this way. I think fans, you guys will love it. Trust me. I know Matt knows what I'm talking about. So once he releases that, you'll definitely see that. And by the way, I'm glad to help Matt inadvertently. He's going to use a little anecdote I had about Julian Champagny in that article.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Big fan help.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see that. So again, follow him on X at MattGZMAN. Matt, we always appreciate you taking time. I know you're busy, you're on the road right now, but hey, we made it work. You made your appearance here at Locked On Spurs, and we appreciate you. You're welcome to come here anytime you like. So, everybody else, subscribe to Locked On Spurs, wherever you get your favorite podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, you know where to go. And subscribe to the Locked On Spurs newsletter. It's available right now. Just go into the YouTube side of things, click on the description. It's in there right now. Can't make it easier for you. It says LO Spurs newsletter. Click on that. It's completely free. Sign up right now. We'll be back tomorrow talking all things silver and black. Spurs are on a little 4-game roadie. See how they're doing away from San Antonio. So for Matt Guzman, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.